Dear patrons, I've always half jokingly said that there are only two ways to graduate from the microcap world: grow organically above 250 million, and then get a sense of the blue sky, sunlight, and institutional interest that awaits you. Or you start small, acquire a few things, pivot to something that has a real growth trajectory, and never see the LD or OTC signs ever again. Late last year, LD was approaching the 2,000 company mark, and we're in the process of tabulating the biggest winners from this group over the past 15 years. The successful companies all have one thing in common: they were able to evolve. Our next company is a name that many investment circles know about that is currently experiencing a big transition of its own. Monaker Group, ticker MKGI, is a technology company focused on three primary areas: ad tech, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. The company's shareholders just approved their acquisition of HotPlay, an ad tech company focused on in-game advertising. Subject to NASDAQ's approval and satisfaction, Monaker is planning to change the company's name to NextPlay Technologies in the coming weeks. Joining us on the call today to give our community a sneak peek of the new company, it is my pleasure to welcome Monaker CEO, Mr. Bill Kirby, the Director of Corporate Development, Mr. Richard Marshall, as well as HotPlay CTO, Mr. Mark Vange. Gents, I know we all have a lot of ground to cover today. I thought I was busy over the past year. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chris. And again, everything covered in the presentation is by forward-looking statements, which is available on our website. That's very correct, Chris. Monaker, for the past year, has been taking a digital transformation to the next level. We're in the final stages of a significant transformational merger or acquisition, at which point we become NextPlay Technologies, an innovative, globally positioned technology company traded on NASDAQ. We've already secured the trading symbol NXTP. And really what we have done, and with the anticipated closing of the HotPlay merger, which the only outstanding element at this point is the NASDAQ approval. We're in the final review. We hope to hear something very, very soon, at which point the name would change. The merger with HotPlay is completed, and the symbol becomes NXTP. The one other outstanding element was completed last week. We filed an 8K early this week. As part of the transaction, the Thai investment group that has been the driving force behind these technologies and this merger was needed to commit 15 million capital into the company. They put 3 million capital into Monaker in the fall of 2020. They sent another 10 million in capital into Monaker about 4 or 5 weeks ago, which enabled us to complete a couple of acquisitions. I'll go into detail. And the balance of the 2 million was infused into Monaker late last week. As NextPlay Technologies, we will be a digital business ecosystem, a company that caters and ties together digital advertisers, consumers, video gamers, and travelers. If we think about it, whether we're current generation, the elderly generation, Gen Zs, millennials, we have all become accustomed to living on our phones. When we're not on our phones, we're probably on our laptops, our PCs, or our tablets. And when we're at home, we're on the smart TV. We live there. And we're building an ecosystem that pushes digital advertising, consumer or video gaming, travel products, banking solutions, digital banking solutions into this vast ecosystem. We have put together, with our most recent acquisition, Zapware, an ecosystem of connected TV that we can push to approximately 50 million subscribers, both directly and indirectly. NextPlay Technologies at our core is a next generation in-game, in-video advertising and monetization platform. And we have travel, gaming, financial technology verticals that leverage artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, creating unique user experiences for the consumer. We also, through our Longroot acquisition, which we own 75%, we have access to regulated digital token offering platform, Longroot, which integrates into each of our business verticals, creating a digital asset securitization opportunity across business lines. So again, the ecosystem of Zapware, which we most recently acquired, and I'll go into detail in each of these business components as we move through here, has a system user, both directly and indirectly, of approximately 50 million people. And we can now push advertising solutions, hyperlocal advertising solutions of Hotplay, gaming content or content from partners, again, from relationships of Hotplay, digital banking solutions into the system, as well as next trip travel offerings. And this is all relevant because, again, post-pandemic, we certainly know on a travel perspective, there's incredible pent-up demand. We know that the new world is becoming more aligned with digital finance, cryptocurrencies, digital banking, mobile banking. We know that the gaming world is booming, and we have ventures in there, access there, content there. And we know being able to push advertising, couponing into this type of a system is a way to generate revenue. Each item will grow on its own vertical. Travel continues to grow through its sales force, but can now push into this ecosystem we've acquired through the acquisition of Zapware. Same for Hotplay. Hotplay will continue to grow in its own vertical, into additional games, but again, pushes into this 50 million ecosystem. Same with the banking solution. Why are we here? Well, we know we're in some of these very large digital and real world areas. Travel, a $900 billion industry, interactive digital media going to $1 trillion industry, digital finance, all growing at tremendous rates. If we come here to the key component and the last piece of this puzzle as it comes together for the combined companies, Hotplay is a next generation in-game advertising solution company. It brings together the gamers with the businesses. It drives traffic from online to offline and equally from offline back to online. One of the biggest problems in in-game advertising has become such an incredibly sizable market growing at an incredible pace, has been the inability to advertise in an effective way into that media. The approach mostly to this point has been interstitial ads, disruptive ads that have done nothing more than frustrate the gamers. Hotplay has been designed and developed by three key individuals that become a part of NextPlay Technologies that have significant past gaming experience, gaming development experience, who saw an opportunity to approach in-game advertising in a different fashion. They're not simply putting up a billboard in a game. They're taking the approach similar to the motion picture product placement, where an element of the game, see here on the left, it could be a car or an airplane. The skin of the gaming asset could be changed for a Coca-Cola, it could be changed for M&Ms, it could be changed for Gap outfits. Their ads, they also have interactive ads where as the gamer is progressing through the game, part of the transition, part of the game becomes the branded element. So for example, if you're playing a game where you're being shot and you're required to drink a power-up drink to revitalize yourself, that can could be rebranded as a Coke, as a Mr. Pibb, as a Starbucks coffee. And so there is interaction in the play of the game without disrupting the game. Additionally, the push of coupons into the game to give real world credits. So if we look at essentially Hotplay, you start out in a game, the gamer is there, playing through the game, winning these in-game tokens, which at the end of the game, you've racked up significant tokens. The Hotplay technology integrates into the game, becomes components of the game, whether they're interactive, etc. And what they do is they then take those tokens and convert them into real world credit, actual physical coupons that can be converted in the real world. So the gamers on the game wins the credits. The credits get turned into 50 cents off a can of Coke. They can go to a retailer, get real world benefit out of gaming and using this technology that's built a good relationship between the brand and the gamer because they get economic credit. At the store, on the conversion of the credit, there could be a QR code or a scan code, and that data then goes back to the advertiser that they know they advertised Johnny played the game on Tuesday. His tokens were converted into Coca-Cola credits and coupons. And on Thursday, he exchanged those coupons at a 7-Eleven. And when he was at the 7-Eleven, he also purchased X, Y, and Z. Incredible data for the advertising company. And then the hot play solution goes a step further, that in the scan code or the sales receipt, there's a scan code that can be scanned back into the game so that the gamer could then get game credits back into the game. It becomes this circular nature. There is benefit generated to the gamer, there's benefit generated to the advertiser, there's benefit generated to the retailer, and it continues to go back. Gamer retentions returning to the game have indicated that they actually go up using this technology. So how do we grow that business, and how does Hot Play ramp up the deployments not only into individual games? We believe that we can push this, and with the acquisition of Zapware, on April 6th, Monaker announced that we'd acquired a 51% stake in Reinhardt TV. Reinhardt TV is actually just the special acquisition company that we established. We own 51% of Reinhardt TV. We funded Reinhardt TV, and Reinhardt TV has actually acquired Zapware. Zapware is a well-established connected TV company, middleware company out of Europe. They were originally Philips Media. They were a spin out from Philips Media, and they have been essentially funded and driven by a regional development fund, a sovereign wealth fund in Europe for the past 20 years. They have won all of the significant awards. One of the impediments or kind of covenants of the funding by the sovereign or development fund in the region was that they had to stay within the area of Europe with their technology. Although they had won awards all over the world and were being sought out for being a solution in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, and in Asia. With our acquisition, taking out the sovereign wealth fund, Zapware now has the ability to organically and quickly grow its user base. And so you see on here, we do expect the potential reach of this 50 million user base that they have to potentially grow to 300 million, both through potential acquisitions and also organically. So for example, one of the telecom operators that they do business with and have done with for several years may be an operator in 10 countries, but because of the restrictions of the sovereign wealth fund, they could only service 2 or 3 of those countries for them. Now that we have removed the restrictions, they can easily increase their deployments, and we expect to see significant news on that in the very near term. Hotplay has an incredible opportunity within the Zapware ecosystem. If we think about connected TV and local advertising, it just doesn't fit. And this was another one of the reasons that Zapware had been, or Reinhardt TV and Zapware had been in conversations with Hotplay since last year. They, as most of the connected TV companies, are looking for a local advertising solution. It doesn't make sense for a business in San Diego to have its advertisements being pushed in Zurich, Switzerland, in Buenos Aires, Brazil. And the hot play technology will allow for a hyper local so that they can push into the San Diego market for the San Diego retailer or merchant, onto the phones, onto the laptops, onto the smart TVs. Again, this growing ecosystem and why we wanted to be a part of it, as gaming continues to grow. And I think now more than 50% of the world are recognized as gamers. There is this expectation that not only do people play on their phones and play on their PCs, but with the improvements in smart TVs will become more widely used for gaming. And again, what we have put together with the acquisition of Zapware is this ecosystem where we can reach consumers on the phone, on the laptop, on the PC, and on smart TV. Next Trip, which was the business that Monaker is well known for, is in the travel business. And obviously, with the pandemic early last year, this is when we started looking at ways that we could improve and enhance shareholder value during a pandemic. And the reason why we moved down the path on the merger with Hot Play, the acquisition of Longroot, and the acquisition of the Zapware ecosystem connected TV. But again, if we think about it, if we're looking at this ecosystem that we have created and now own, uh, pushing cruises, pushing tour offerings into the ecosystem of 50 million users that's going to 300 million users becomes quite prosperous for us. Because again, flashing into the system, we have a cruise in the Mediterranean, click here. There's a 50% off on a cruise in Japan, click here. We have this incredible system that we can grow our businesses not only on the current verticals and with the sales forces that they're on, but now pushing into the ecosystem. I'll touch here on Longroot that we acquired late last year. Longroot is one of three licensed and regulated cryptocurrency digital coin offering portals based in Thailand. Since our acquisition, we have already announced one of the significant developers in Thailand has contracted with Longroot to explore an underwriting for about $500 million for their project. It's a project called Forestias. It's about a $4.5 billion project in downtown Bangkok. And instead of doing a bond offering for 500 million, they're looking to do a coin offering. They've engaged Longroot to explore. There's communication now between the two parties of what the coin could look like, should look like, the attributes of the coin. And we're hopeful that an offering or an undertaking of that nature will come through in the near term, as will others that we're in conversations with. Our most recent acquisition is a company called International Financial Enterprise Bank. It's a bank out of Puerto Rico. We have acquired, subject to regulatory approval, 57% of the bank. Again, in the new digital world, in the digital ecosystem where we're headed, the consumer lives on the phone, laptop, PC, smart TV. Digital banking becomes more and more relevant. We now have access into digital banking. We, through our strategic partnerships, through our strategic shareholders, believe that we can put additional capital, deposits into the bank, allowing the bank to further grow its business significantly. They're an established bank of about 5 years in Puerto Rico. We are hopeful that we will get regulatory approval to close the transaction within the next 60 days, and everything looks quite favorable. We're growing gaming assets, again, that we can push into this ecosystem. Hot Play has a couple of their own IP, Evergreen Hill, Evergreen Forest. They've established relationships with companies like Atari, Trajectory, Make It Games, and others. We have recently announced that we've contracted and expect to start taking delivery of 16 mini games that will be pushed into the Zapware ecosystem. And again, what the telecom operators, what the digital TV companies are looking for is an ability, something that there is a revenue share item that they can participate in that the consumer wants. We see that with travel. We see that with digital banking. We see that with gaming. We see that with local advertising, hyperlocal, and couponing. So we have put together a significant ecosystem that we believe we can scale, and have revenue opportunity into this system in addition to the verticals that they continue to grow on. At the end of the transaction, we have roughly 82 million shares outstanding. I think significantly we should note here, of the 82 million shares, about 60 million of them are held by board, management, or key affiliate shareholders. The Hot Play company has been financed over the last several years by a very affluent group out of Thailand, where we welcome their interest into our company as a significant shareholder. They will have board representation on the company. We have taken our company from a US-based, travel-focused, into now a global company, a global footprint. With the combined companies, we see a employee base of about 240 people. The Zapware is a well-established, profitable business. The banking business is established, and we believe growing profitably well this year. So we look forward to closing them later this year. Key drivers and people involved in this. On the Hot Play side, we've got Jess Bunyawanapasit. She was actually one of the original founders of Epic Games China, been involved in many big IP games in the gaming space. She, along with Mark Vange, who's here on the call with me today, and we'll jump in here in a little while. Mark also has a significant background in gaming. He built his first game as a teenager. He's been involved at Electronic Arts Interactive as the former CTO. I'll let him go into a little more detail later. We've got Bill Kirby on the phone with us. Because we've got significant Thai interests, it's pretty interesting that the chief financial officer for Monaker is actually a Thai citizen. He's been living in the US the last 20 years, and has been very helpful in the discussions and advancements and the consolidations. So we look forward to the combination with Hot Play in the near term. Don Monaco will continue as our chairman, and we'll be joined with Todd Bonner, who's been involved in these Thai assets. Todd started out his career as an investment banker at Alex Brown, did one of the biggest Asian banking deals with Alex Brown, banking Li Ka-shing's company. He then worked with Richard Lee and founded several very successful companies. They also took over Hong Kong Telecom together. And Todd has been in gaming and driving force behind the in-game advertising. We've got Compson and Athid that are joining the board on behalf of the Thai investment group. They're both big representatives, executive representatives of DTGO, which is a division of the CP group. And we have a well-rounded board. So we become a leading technology company. We're innovative. We're building this digital ecosystem and marketing high demand, high interest products in travel, in gaming, in advertising, in digital banking, into that system and in their own verticals. We have an exciting, innovative organization, monetizing products, whether they're our products, monetizing brands for others into this massive ecosystem. We're positioned for growth. We're, I believe, like everyone, anticipating a significant rebound in travel. We've positioned well there with travel, with new cruise portals, cruise booking portals. We've got a new Next Trip Journeys portal coming out. We've developed a significant business solution that we have recently rolled out. We have a well-positioned board, and everyone has significant stake in this company. As I said, with about 75% insider or key strategic shareholder ownings. The final step for us to close the Hot Play merger and become Next Play Technologies is the NASDAQ approval. We've been in communication with them over the last couple of weeks. We have submitted their requests, and we're hopeful that their final review is now down into the very last stage, so that we can close and become Next Play Technologies. I think this gives you a very high overview on the company. I can say internally the enthusiasm in all of the divisions. And again, some may ask, well, how do you know what to do in digital TV? Well, we've got award-winning teams that have been running the Zapware for 20 years. They're the former partners and founders and spin out of Philips Media. How do we run banking? We've got banking partners. These guys built the bank 5 years ago. They've been running it. We believe that we can help them grow and put them into some additional markets and help expand more rapidly their business. Everything we do is complementary into this ecosystem. And with that, I think I'll ask Chris to jump back in and go from there.
Rich, thank you again for the presentation. And for anyone who wants to ask a question, please feel free to use the Q&A app in Zoom, or you can email me at chris@ldmicro.com. We have a lot of questions, so let's get right into it. Gents, can you tell me what your master plan is for all your travel group assets?
Thanks, Chris. I'll take that. As an example, when you look at the wheel that Richard has just put up and how some of these things interact, traditionally, as Next Trip, we would go out and try to find a purchaser of travel. We would book the travel for them, and we would hope they had a nice trip and give us glowing reviews when they came back. We're now integrating the hot play couponing technology into travel so that when you leave and start your trip, because of the fact we already have your profile, we have the ability to help you every step of the way on your trip. So if you need help with restaurants that you like, if you want to do a helicopter tour, if you want to go deep sea fishing, if you want to have a limousine service come and pick you up, all those things are now at your fingertips through your cell phone, because we'll be able to push the couponing and the solutions right to the traveler. So we're now covering you from the time you leave to the time you get back. And with every transaction that you do from an introduction that's been given by us, we increase our revenue stream. Similarly, going over to the banking side, the obvious approach from the banking side begins to create a Next Trip credit card. So at the end of the day, we start to give special services, features, and benefits to all of our Next Trip travelers through the credit card that is issued by the bank. And then the final section that we're working on is the development of a Next Trip coin that's going to allow us to do, amongst other things, wholesale travel and medical tourism solutions, but that's yet to come in terms of going forward. And of course, Richard already covered the fact that we can use Zapware to be able to target 50 million, 100 million, 200 million people with our specials and programs for travel services. So you can see we've not been sitting quiet over the course of the last 12 months' time while the pandemic has raged on. We've figured out ways to build our model out and to dramatically grow it.
No, no one could say that you guys have been sitting still, that's for sure. So how is the current travel business doing? And would you ever divest that business?
Well, in terms of how the current travel business is doing, like all other businesses in travel, they're starting to show some strong rebooking. I think that for most Americans, we're tired of sitting in our home looking outside and not being able to go out and travel. And so we're seeing tremendous interest in starting to book travel. We're still fighting with some of the things like when cruises are actually allowed to take place. In the United States, there's currently set as a November 1st launch date. We hope that that gets pulled back and happens sooner. But at the end of the day, we're seeing a very strong build in bookings coming back into the system, which is really nice to see, because for the longest time, it was only cancellations. In terms of would we ever consider selling the travel component or any of the other components, everything about the company, as the board would suggest, is driven by people that want to see the company do well. If the right opportunity came along, because of the fact that we're all shareholders in the company, we would entertain the right offer. But at this point in time, no, there's no plans to spin out the travel division.
And in that, let me just add there too, that as the pandemic took effect in the spring, many of the peer companies and peer travel technology companies put their pens down, furloughed staff. We actually put and made further investment into our solutions and hired additional staff. So we've actually tripled the size of our staff in travel over the last 6 months. We've actually positioned some new products, including our business solution, which we've been working on for the last couple of years. Now, business travel may be a little slower in coming back than vacation travel. However, we've come with a SaaS model. The competitors, whether it's a Trip Actions, an Expedia, Agencia, and American Express, they charge a company $50,000 or $100,000 to use their system, and then add on top. We're doing a $30 or $45 per user. We're finding incredible interest from small to medium-sized businesses, whether they're architectural firms, construction firms, someone that may have 50 employees, but they only have 10 or 15 real travelers. And we've seen very good uptake in that already. So we think we've positioned very well in travel.
Our next question and final question in regards to travel is, with the recent Airbnb IPO, what do you think the travel group is worth based off revenues and influence?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
It is. That's why I like that. That's why I like that question.
I'm going to answer the question by giving a review of the product that we had by an outside source when people were complaining that it wasn't recognizing the value of our travel entity and the business-to-business booking platform that we created. And at that time, they were frustrated because our company was running with about a $20 million market cap, and an independent appraisal group had looked at it saying if we were a private company, they would be looking to take us public at $200 million. Now, whether the truth is in the marketplace that we were worth more than $20 million, or whether the truth is not in the marketplace and we're worth closer to $200 million, beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. But as any CEO would say, I think that the travel division is dramatically undervalued based upon what we've built out, the connections that we've made, the distribution capabilities we have, and now the accelerants that we're dropping into the travel businesses. That's about as best as I can do, Chris.
And what we've done too here is we've supplemented travel, whether it's a pandemic or whether it's a recession where you see travel go down. We've counterbalanced with elements of advertising or gaming that seem to be counter-cyclical or more buoyant in a pandemic or a recession. So we've built a much stronger business for our shareholders. That's what it's all about.
Gentlemen, I didn't check, but did you guys get any halo effect as they were approaching into the Airbnb IPO, or not so much?
Yeah, I think there was a little into there, Chris, but we've been so active over the last 6, 7, 8 months with acquisitions. It was hard to really say what was driving and where the interest was coming from, especially around that time. We certainly have got some very interesting products we've been building in the travel space. We have an inventory of 3.5 million vacation rental properties that we're connecting with big partners. We hope to see some news on that in the very near term as well, especially as the world is coming back and there's this pent-up demand of people looking to get this type of content back into their system or get it into their system for the very first time.
Understood. Now we go on to HotPlay. Can you give us a little more color on the relationship with HotPlay before you guys decided to acquire them?
Hey, Mark, I think we're going to let you take that.
So, well, the relationship before the acquisition was one that Bill and Todd were driving. The goal, of course, is now to use the unlimited, effectively, reach of games into all aspects of people's lives, including their travel and other choices. Especially over the last year and a half, if anything, the gameplay has exploded. Video games were already the largest kind of entertainment market in the world, eclipsing music, eclipsing films. And then over the last year and a half, we've had even more growth. Something like 60% of all people worldwide have increased in the amount of time that they're playing their games. And they've also increased their interaction with other forms of media, like over-the-air video content and so on. So, at Hot Play, we have been focused on the monetization of what are called freemium games. Freemium games, just like TV content, is in this funny world where you spend a lot of time creating the media, and then you give it away for free in the hope that you can convince some small segment of your users to actually give you money for it. Typically, that's about 3% of the users. And so video game developers are very sensitive to and are always seeking opportunities to monetize their products. While in-game advertising has been around for a while, as has in film and in TV advertising, it has always been limited to kind of one of two things. On the one hand, you have sort of ad placement or product placement type of advertising. ET has Smarties, right? The other type of advertising is more similar to in video games to the advertising that you see on the TV show, right? The show stops, everything freezes, you show the 30-second commercial, and then you go back to the content. I have a 13-year-old, and one thing that I've noticed is when that 30-second spot comes on, she puts her phone down, and at 29.8 seconds, she picks that phone back up. And she now is just programmed to know what 30 seconds feels like, right? So that is a wasted ad. And the rates that are paid for these ads reflect the fact that their effectiveness is very low. They are an intrusion, in much the same way as if you're watching your TV show or your sports, the last thing you want to do is to see the ad in the middle of that thing interrupting the gameplay, and it's kind of the necessary evil. We in video games are seeing this even more interesting trend where there's a couple of companies that have tried to recreate sort of real world ads in video game environments on the assumption that because those ads work in the real world, they will work in video games. So classic example is if I'm walking around in a first person game and I walk by a bus shelter, in the video game, there might be an ad there because there's an ad on the bus shelter, in the real world. I think it's a silly premise because in the real world, the reason the bus shelter works is because I'm waiting for a bus and I got nothing to do for 10 minutes. So I got nothing to do but look at this ad. When I'm in this video game, I'm not sitting around this bus shelter for 10 minutes. I'm running for my life, or I'm hunting something, or I'm seeking something. So it's great window dressing for the game. It sort of increases the veracity of the experience, but it is ineffective as an advertising.
Well, Mark, I was going to have to agree with you. What's interesting is I used to make fun of people who couldn't keep their hands off their phones or their digital devices. And what's happening now, and I think it's a terrible trend, is that even if you have TiVo or something that could forward commercials, they're making you watch the commercials. And I'm 37, and the first thing that I do is when I can't forward the commercials is I look at my damn phone. So, there is kind of method to your madness. It's true. But how do you see that kind of evolving for people outside of the ages of 18 to 49? So
the first thing I'll say is, although we have this notion of what a video game player is, and it's predominantly male, predominantly let's say 16 to 40. In fact, the largest segment by time are older women, and it's a very casual games. It's word puzzle games. It's those kinds of things, and the experience which we are trying to create is one where you actually are interacting with the brand in a positive way, and that interaction generates kind of a long-term experience for you. So what do I mean by this? If I'm walking through that, first-person shooter game, as Richard alluded to earlier, yes, when I pick up the power up that I require, right, that power up is branded. So now I have a positive brand experience, and I also end up with a coupon in my wallet. But that's equally appropriate in, a game of hangman, or in any sort of a casual experience in the same way. And then the experience of kind of collecting these coupons and using these coupons becomes sort of entertainment in its own right. We all had the grandmother or the parent who used to clip the coupons from the Sunday paper, right? That was kind of a pastime in and of itself when built correctly. So we're sort of creating that. The kind of punchline way of describing it is, we have a mechanism that allows ET to eat Smarties for you, but eat potato chips for me, eat seaweed for someone in Asia, eat barbecue for someone in Texas, just to kind of use stereotypes. So it essentially creates a fungible mechanism for inserting these brands into a much more meaningful presence in the product, and also connecting them with the real world, connecting them with the real store. The other thing that should really be highlighted is that the greatest cost for game developers and publishers is customer acquisition and customer retention, right? You may have heard this concept of the attention economy, right? As it becomes cheaper and cheaper to create the entertainment product, it becomes more and more expensive to find users and retain users. And so the ability for us to not only increase the monetization, but also to increase retention by driving traffic back into the game through this coupon clipping and collection mechanism is actually an extremely valuable addition to the game developers and publishers. So as opposed to this being kind of a one-way street where I put up the ad and I get some money, but the trade-off is that the player has left my game because they followed the link, we present a platform for them that allows that player to come back into the world. And then you may have heard of the idea of the passion economy, which is kind of the next wave after the attention economy. And one of the things that's exciting about next trip for me is that actually it is kind of in one of the spokes of that passion economy. People feel strongly about travel. People look forward to travel. People kind of plan their lives and plan their vacations around travel. So we get to engage with them on a much more meaningful level, where it's not just an inconvenience. We're actually creating opportunities for them to explore and to discover new destinations. And even if it's a business trip, discover activities and discover opportunities around that business travel. And with Zapware, we have the opportunity now to integrate with the sales forces of the operator partners around the world to actually sell that advertising through their sales forces to vendors, to brands, to retailers in these various geographies. So it becomes a much more powerful solution, a much more powerful platform than just travel, than just in-game advertising.
Understood. So we have about 10 minutes left and we still have a ton of questions. Rich, I love the fact that you are answering questions, the Q&A function. Well done. I'm going to see if I can kind of relay that to the entire audience too, just in case for those who don't have those questions coming in. So the next question is, let me take a quick look. Hot Play is in an extremely competitive market. Does the company have anything proprietary that gives you guys a significant edge?
So this idea of not just having an overlay ad that's just kind of an interruption to your experience, but actually embedding that product, embedding that ad into the game in a meaningful, interactive way that facilitates this loop, is something that, while it seems like a simple idea, hasn't been done because it's actually technologically very complex. And so we filed a bunch of patents internationally around the protection of this. And we are pursuing those that patent filings in the various markets where it is relevant, of course.
Mark, maybe you could also jump in here and give a little bit on your background and your involvement in patents, kind of in and around the technology and gaming space.
Sure, love to. So I've been in tech basically all my life. I sold my first program when I was 10 years old. I had the #1 selling game of Christmas of '89, which meant that university was 6 of the happiest months of my life. And then I entered college with 25 employees and exited with I think 40 employees 6 months later. So I've built and sold several companies over the years, and they've all been one way or another founded in IP and in a technology platform. So I got involved in online games very early. I wrote some of the foundational patents that actually enabled online multiplayer. The games, built a company called VR1 that had the first commercial massively multiplayer online game for both Microsoft and Sony, along with various telecom operators around the world. That was a very successful exit. I also built a company called Mobile Post Production, which was in the early days of mobile games, and basically performed all the hard work of taking games and apps and making them run on every phone in the world, every carrier in the world, every different billing infrastructure, language, localization, and so on. And that was the company that we ultimately sold to Electronic Arts, where I became the Chief Technology Officer of Electronic Arts Interactive, which at the time was in the process of transitioning from being what you'd think of as a boxed product company, you know, shipping CDs and boxes to retail stores, and transitioning to an online kind of a presence where we had online games, Facebook games, mobile games, all connected all the time. And so I was CTO at EAI for kind of through much of that transition. So, you know, I've always been at the kind of start of these kind of transitions in the marketplace through the creation of enabling technologies and kind of building the infrastructure and building the capabilities. I have a lot of history in working with telecoms and operators around the world, and you know, of building up these concepts into operating successful companies.
Mark, by any chance, was that game that you invented in 1989 Echo the Dolphin?
No, it was Dragon's Lair, if you remember that game.
Yes. I was gonna say that if it was Echo the Dolphin, that was the hardest game ever and anyone has ever invented. So if you said yes, I would have been like, shame on you. Okay, so let's kind of we have 7 or 8 minutes, Mark. Thank you again for the insight. Has Monaker disclosed what Hot Play has done in terms of revenue and income since inception?
The answer is no, we have not, Chris.
Okay. Given all that is on your plate, how have the roles of existing management changed with all these new assets being acquired? I thought that was a great question.
I think it is a great question. And when we first started this, we really thought that the travel entity was going to be pushed off to the side, and that the gaming side of this and the Hot Play was going to become the dominant forces in this. One of the advantages of COVID and everybody being shut down is that the merger has ended up taking closer to a year, where we would have hoped it would have taken about 3-4 months. And so they gave us a chance to start to work together as a company, even though we weren't technically merged as a company. And that time gave us the ability to find synergies amongst all the various entities that would have been overlooked, I think, if this had been pushed together immediately. And so as you see in what Rich is displaying, you kind of go down the list, and you've got our chairman, Don Monaco, remaining on as a co-chairman with Todd Bonner. You have me remaining on as a co-CEO with Nitin and Urjess. You have our CFO, Kent, falling into a very interesting role, being the CFO now for the entire company. You have Mark Vange, who you can tell by his incredible knowledge base, becoming the CTO of the entire new company. We have Tim Sikora staying on as the COO, CIO for us moving forward, and you got Richard staying on as corporate development. So at the end of the day, you kind of look across the board, you look across the directors that have been brought in, And you've ended up with a merger of equals and all kinds of opportunities to be able to take the technology successes in one area and apply them into another area to accelerate.
And the business management teams at the different levels of the companies, again, we go to the banking, it's got a 5-year successful record of growth. And we think that we can accelerate that by simply increasing deposits in there that they can leverage and then grow their profitability. We look at Zapware, 20-year operating history, growing profitable, an award-winning team. We're not coming in and telling them how to run their business. We're simply leveraging a lot of these high-interest consumer products into their ecosystem. So the downstream managements are very, very capable. It's just a tremendous platform and opportunity for these combined companies.
Are the companies going to be operated independently for the most part? When do you guys come in?
Well, no, they're not going to be operated independently. What we're actually doing is we're setting up cross-pollination with board members and officers in every one of the companies. So as an example, Mark Vange and I are sitting on the board of the bank to move forward. We have Tim Sikora and myself sitting on the board of Longroot with Todd and others as we go forward. And so by bringing people from the different elements of the businesses to sit on the boards of the operating companies is what's helping us drive integration quickly and see the opportunities from all different angles.
Understood. And this is not really a question. This is more of a remark, but I thought it was kind of humorous. Bonus points for anyone who can pronounce the founder of Hot Play's last name. Will any gentleman attempt that in this call?
Unyuwanapisa?
Wow. That is as Thai as it gets. Impressive.
I didn't say it was correct, Chris. I didn't say it was correct.
But let me tell you, it sounded really good.
It's like horseshoes and hand grenades. I think I'm very close. Mark, am I close? You're on mute, Mark.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, Mark.
My apologies. It sounded perfect to me.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we would get a pass in Bangkok. Well done.
I'm very happy that it's taken this long to close so I can get the pronunciation correct. And Jess is incredible. She's a very talented lady, incredible resume like Mark. We're excited to have her, and be able to push a lot of her products into this ecosystem and grow.
Well, I mentioned that because also one of my very close friends is Thai and his last name is Chavalit, but I've always called him Jimmy Kitty because I'm American and it's a lot easier. Okay, so the final question on the email side. What does the current cap structure look like? And what are the incentive plans in place for both Hot Play and Axion? How will that number change the number of shares outstanding in the next 12 to 24 months? Thank you for the question.
So the answer to that question is that we believe that we should, first of all, involve our entire staff. And so we have a stock option plan available to everybody. Every senior officer in the company ends up working under a contract that gives them a base salary, gives them incentives. And if they hit those incentives, they can earn anywhere from 0 to 100% of their salary in terms of a bonus. 100% of their salary is for achieving some remarkable reach goal that takes place. But at the end of the day, you want all of your senior officers, directors, and employees knowing what they're part of, what their opportunity is, and why they're going to be rewarded for spending those extra hours in the middle of the night dealing with Thailand if you're on this side of the world, or vice versa for them if they're dealing with helping us on this side of the world. And so at the end of the day, that always comes down to the decision of the end executive that's being awarded, whether they want to take that award in cash or in shares. What we found up to this particular point in time is most of the people wanted in shares. But again, the amount of capital that we would end up issuing, if you look at the salary base of the company relative to the size of the company, is extremely small in terms of how it would affect our cap structure, but extremely significant to the individuals. And so I would suspect that most of the people will end up having achieved goals and awards, would probably want to take stock as opposed to cash, but that becomes their decision.
And Chris, at the end of the transaction, as we see on the chart, there's about 83 million shares issued and outstanding. And again, skin in the game, stake in this. 75% of that is held by board management and key insiders or affiliate shareholders. The Thai group have a real ownership in this. There's not interest in building something for 6 months or 12 months or 24 months. We're building a massive enterprise here. It's a massive new digital ecosystem. We're pushing some very interesting products into that system and growing. They see the opportunity. So there's a tremendous amount of kind of leverage, or we're connected to the performance of the company.
Understood. And I appreciate you guys answering this. So now we're going to go to the final thing, which is the chat function of the app. Joseph was asking questions in regards to financials. Do you guys kind of have a consensus of what you feel that you're going to do, on top line and bottom line, or you still haven't given out any formal guidance?
So the answer is we've not given out any formal guidance, and for obvious reasons, the deal is technically not closed yet.
Right.
It would be a mistake for us to give formal guidance until such time as we are operating as one company. Having said that, I don't want you to get the idea that we've been sitting around and thinking, well, maybe we should get to doing financials and forecasts and projections after everything's all done. That has largely been done at this point in time. And so, Chris, we believe that we'll be able to give forward guidance for this company over the course of the next week to 2 weeks' time. And we think we're going to shock a lot of people. We're looking at this company being very profitable this year with very significant revenue base. And I don't think most people would have anticipated that based upon a merger of this particular size. And that's just off of our base core operations. That's leaving off the table things like a long route where it ends up elephant hunting and doing a $500 million or $1 billion cryptocurrency offering and ends up with a $30-40 million commission as a result of it. We're just talking about the basic integration of the Next Trip, Hot Play, Zapware platforms. We've even left the bank out of that at this point in time, and we see significant revenue and profitability by the time we get through the end of the second quarter of this year.
Bill, and I appreciate you giving us some color on this, because most of the questions that came in were financial related. It just seems like people are having a hard time kind of mapping things out, and I guess everyone's going to have to wait and see. So, Pete, I feel that Bill's answer was valid for you. Jacob asked, what relationship, if any, will there be with Axion Ventures after the Hot Play merger?
So I think that is still up in the air. At this point in time, we've just recently gone through an annual general meeting, and there were some irregularities in terms of the voting that took place. We still hope that we'll get to the point where we can find a resolution to either separate from Axion and get value out of it, or have the ability to be able to drive Axion. But at this point in time, we have started to develop our own gaming platforms and programs. We're not waiting around for a resolution with Axion in terms of going forward. We put in place the elements that we need in order to complete our model, and we can do very well without them, and we can accelerate if we end up with them.
And I'll just jump in too and just say that, again, as Bill was explaining, several months ago, we were looking for a developer channel in gaming, and we were looking for IP to put into this ecosystem that we were acquiring from Zapware. As we found that it didn't seem to be progressing in finding some common ground to move our investment in Axion forward, we went elsewhere. We've made relationships with other developers so that we can get these mini games. We've got 16 of them in the development pipeline, with the first few being released and pushed into the system next month. So we have found other sources to fill what we thought Axion could have been for us many months ago.
Given that we have 30 seconds and I still haven't asked any of my questions, very, very quickly, you guys, when travel ultimately opens up, what's that first place that all of you are going to go visit?
For me personally, it's going to be Thailand because of the fact I would really like to meet in person a whole bunch of people that I've been communicating with for the last year over Zoom.
Understood. What about you, Rich?
I think it's going down to see my mother. I haven't been able to do that, and so I think that's what I'll do.
That's awesome. And you, Mark?
Sounding like a copycat, but I got to get back up to Canada, visit my folks, because I haven't been able to see them for, over a year now.
Awesome. And if anyone is interested in me, Tokyo, but I'm probably going to go to Santa Barbara instead. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. I apologize if I didn't answer anyone's questions. Just email me at chris@ldmicro.com. And I know you guys have a busy day ahead of you. I will see you on the other side. Be well, everyone.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye-bye. Thank you.